Hi guys. Okay, so I'm going to paint a project on my easel here, and it's going to be a practice for some windows that I have coming up next week, or I believe in a couple of weeks. And that is for Divorce Ice Cream Shop that I told you guys about last time that I created some videos for Halloween. And I have to practice, okay? It's this Winter Wonderland theme right here. And then I'm going to do a deer on one of the windows, and she provided that, for me too. And the steps to the project is going to be basically 3 steps, okay? It's going to be the base coat on the glass, and there's going to be 2 layers of that, and then it's going to be the color, and then the mist, actually. So the base coat, the color, and then creating the mist. And she wants, instead of the, whoops. Okay, so I'm gonna do a practice painting here on my easel. And the reason why I need to practice is because I'm going to create this Winter Wonderland theme at one of my clients' stores. And that's that ice cream shop that I told you guys about last week on one of my videos. So anyhow, it's going to be on glass and it's going to be on the inside. And when you're painting on glass, it consists of a couple of steps, okay, before you start getting into the details. And one of them is applying a base coat on the glass because it's transparent, it's glass. So I need to create a base for it. And so I'll be covering up the whole window with 2 coats of white, and then I'll be creating my detail. And instead of red ornaments, she wants to stick with red and green. So that's going to be the theme. And then on one of the windows, I'm going to be doing a deer for her. So, and then I believe some Merry Christmas wording or something like that. But I hope you guys hang around. And also to let you know, I have a Halloween window painting tutorial on my channel. It's under the Halloween playlist, and you can go to episode 7, and it shows you the steps on those windows for the window art. Okay, so let's get to it. Okay, so I have my old brushes in here. I took out the bucket. I've got some colors that I brought out just in case I need them. And I bought some new brushes for this project, but I've got so many old brushes, I don't know why I would need those new brushes. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if these work good or I have to keep the new ones. But here's my water, and here's my paints that I'm going to use. I started off with the green base right there, and I just added dark or black to make it darker, and then even more so here. And I added a little bit of red and blue to create a little different black. So, okay. I am going to pen my source right here. Well, no, maybe I should keep it in my hand for right now until I kind of roughly draw what I want. Okay, so I've got my rags ready. I've got my old brush right here. This is actually a cheap one, like $1.50. So I'm just gonna roughly lay out what I want. And so I start off by making these forms in the back, okay? Very, very mild. I'm gonna have to be careful with my runs because I am working indoors and I don't want to create so much of it, but I'm gonna have to lay this out. Just roughly. Let's do some less watered down. And I have 14 windows of these little guys here. And it's indoors. And I'm gonna have to tarp everything down. And I can't create no runs over there, so never mind all that. It's okay, it's all gonna get covered up. So not so watered down paint to lay out my trees that I have in the background. And they're very minute. I'm working on this one. And I'll have to let this coat dry before I start misting, but I still got to put more layers of this. I'm so used to working with watered down paint here at home. And this is not very common, guys. This is like a special request. Indoors is normally not not done. Okay, so I'm going to do this big one right here. This big one, I'm probably going to get a bigger brush for this. And I'm just going to brush paint down. There's one way back here. And whatever I miss, I can come back on another coat. So I'm going to see if I can get that tree that has no leaves on there. And then I'll thin it out if I have to, which I probably will. And I'm just going to go up to right here where this blue tape is at, because the camera won't capture anymore. Otherwise, I'll have to get like very far away. And if you notice, we have that part right here that's white. Of course, not pure white. Coming a little darker, not so watered down. I think I'm going to end up returning those brushes. I just bought them just in case. I might keep the big one. And I'm going to stop right about here and then keep the rest. Whatever I don't like, I can cover up. And I have the reference in my hand, but I'm not really looking at it. When you're doing something like this, when you're doing painting and you have a reference, you kind of have to use your imagination from there on. And I think that I've got enough color to where I might need to let it dry for a little bit so I can create the mist. Let me just put a little bit more on these over here. Just making sure my camera's still on. This is actually going to be fun. Looks like there's a tree right here in the middle that's very minute, but I shouldn't even have to draw that in yet. And then the ornaments I won't do until the end. I might kind of circle my little area. As a matter of fact, I'm going to. So we're going to do red and green. And I'm just going to roughly guess. I'm going to use a smaller brush for those. I'll make this one green. this. You're kind of just blocking out at this point. And I'm going to put a different green on here. So I know that this is the ornament. And I'm not doing the whole thing. Well, actually they are on the photos, so I'm just going to stick with this one as complete. And then leave the green one kind of like it's buried in the snow. I'm going to add some black. For depth. And it's just every now and there. I create some little ones because those are going to go far back. I do have to create enough depth or value, I should say, before I get ready to create my mist. I'm going to add a little bit of that brighter green just here and there. Paintings are usually layer by layer, and pine tree branches are kind of like chaos all over the place. And I think that tree I'm going to put right about in here, so. Turn my brush at an angle. And this is basically the way you would tackle it on a canvas painting. Okay, I'm just gonna lightly, just not be so perfect. And I'm keeping my shadow to the right. And I'm applying kind of thick. And I'm not concerned about perfection. And now I'm gonna go with my mid-tone. And now I'm gonna go with my light. And I'm gonna let this dry because it is supplied pretty thick. And I'm not concerned about perfection. Not right now. Okay, so now I got my red tones. And I put a little bit of yellow in here, just in case. I'm gonna start at the bottom. Make the shadow. Here and there, I'm gonna put a little bit of dark. And I started with a big brush because I don't need a big brush, but because I had used this to mix up my paint. Okay, I'm going to switch over to the smaller brush, which is kind of like a medium. You can get a little perfect, but you don't have to be that perfect. Because you're going to come, when you do the snow here, I'm going to fix up the edges. And then of course here, I already went over, but that's okay. Because when I start forming the detail, it'll work out. And I do want to make sure that I have some water. I have my little tuna can right here. I'm not at eye level to this painting, so it makes it a little harder to be perfect. Adding yellow to your red is better than adding white, although for the end I am going to add a touch of white. Just kind of getting that yellow, blending it in. I'm going to sit down for this one, just to make the circles just a little rounder and be at eye level. I'm right here. Okay, this is not going to form right, so what I think I'm going to do is make these two up in the front. Okay, so I'm gonna let that dry for a bit. I am going to make this one I'm gonna put the little top of the ornament, the cap, I don't know what it's called, right there. And then I start off with my darker color. I kind of have my brush a little double loaded, a little bit of yellow on there to blend it in. Okay, that is a little too dark, and I'm just gonna lighten it up. There's a little bit of purple in here. I do want the purple. And then I'll just kind of put some little shadows with the purple. And then I'll turn my brush sideways to create all that texture. And see, here's where you can start cleaning out your edges. Work on it. And this is how I have my trays set up, my blue tones. I'm going to go ahead and go in here, make it look like there's a little pile of snow right there. And I can do the same right here. But no, I think I want to keep those two round. Highlights on the snow. I'm not going to paint below this light. I kind of went a little further down from the tape. The tape is right here. So I'm going to come back with my red brush and I'm going to form that circle on the ornament a little rounder. And I'm going to position myself in a more comfortable position so it could be easier for me. I'm keeping the shadow behind this ornament. I'm going to make this smooth. And I'm going to create the shadow in here a little thicker. And I've got purple in my red besides black. I want a little bit of purple for the shadow. Now you can start blending because you've already got a layer down, so it makes it easier. See there? And all you're doing is just putting brush strokes. I used to get all perfect before. Look at that pretty bright red. This is cadmium red. Okay, now I'm going to use some of this different red. Just here and there for a little bit of glow. And just kind of blend in with what you have on the surface. See how pretty it looks? Okay, now I'm going to get a little bit of yellow for some brighter highlights. And I'm going to try to keep all my highlights to the left. If you use white with your red, it turns pink. Yellow is recommended. So, or if you have orange, which I do, so I'll probably put some orange in here. We'll see. And then at the end, I can put some white for the brightest highlights. When you're using big brushes, they're not as controllable as your smaller brushes. If you get too dark, it's good because it'll help you when you add some highlights on here. And then get my white on my brush like this. And then I can dab paint to make it look like snow. And then I can brush some to give some smooth little areas. And I'm going to work on this right here. I want that to look kind of gold. And for the little highlight on these, you can actually put a little bit of white right there. Let it kind of sit a little bit. And then you just run your brush straight down and it'll spread. I'm going to use some of this burnt sienna. And let's do it. Let's do this direction right there. And this one's going to be bigger because this ornament is larger. Now see, I've got all my reds on this tray. And now I'm going to get my green tray. And here's a cute little guy. I taped it so that I can kind of stay in line, because when I was applying the chalk to give me my dimension, I couldn't see it. Then once I draw him out or paint him out, I remove the tape. Do keep in mind that every single layer makes a difference. You may be thinking that you're not going towards the right direction, but as long as your proportion is good, you should be able to conclude with a nice painting. And then if not, you just keep playing with it until you finally modify it. Just like here, I actually had to modify the front of the nose because it was just a tad bit too large. And so I just painted over on the white snow. And last but not least, here's how I did the swirls. I did it with a fine line brush, and I'm hoping that you do the same with yours. Either you tackle it on a canvas, a glass, or a board.